This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass.
Welcome to episode 133, The Best of, The Worst Injuries, Vol.1. This episode features highlights from the Crash and the Kiln round where I ask, what is your worst injury in the studio? In celebration of Halloween week, I thought it would be fun to do an annual tradition to share the horror as we listen to the stories of blood, lacerations, and burns. You may even learn a thing or two. Boxfan Willy.
What is your worst injury in the studio?
I'm probably going to be going a little farther with this answer than I probably should, so I'm warning everybody.
Go for it.
Okay, so I used to make a lot of marbles, and I still like making marbles. Love making marbles, and I happened to be working on a rather large marble where I was jacking the tail end of the marble with my diamond shears, and so I popped this really pretty damn big molten blob of glass off, and I always look around to see where it is. I don't want to step on it, I want to try to land it on my table. And I remember this very time I looked around, I was like, man, I wonder where that thing is. Didn't see it, I didn't identify it, and then I sat down in my chair and I found out where it was. That was definitely the worst injury that I've had to date.
Oh my god.
But it worked out all right. I won't go into the details of it, but it was okay, man. I definitely have a nice big scar on my ass for it.
Joe Skar.
What's your worst injury in the studio?
When I first started, I sent some solid 16 mil kind of through the side of my finger, and it kind of touched the bone a little bit. Started bleeding I've never seen blood come out of me like that fast,
Mm-hmm.
It was, and I kind of fainted a little bit. I was like, oh, my stars, and I kind of fell down. And I woke up, there's like blood on everything. It looked like a scene out of Carrie, and I went upstairs, stumbled upstairs, and I dressed up my wound, and my skin was all pale and shit, and I kind of got my wits, and I finally 2 or 3 hours later I went back out to the shop, and my torch was still on and stuff,
Holy shit.
Yeah, and I just it was when I first started. It really kind of put things in perspective about there is some danger here. I got to be careful. That finger still feels weird when it gets cold out from time to time.
Yeah, like a little nerve damage or something in there.
Yeah, and I've had a couple kind of nasty burns like anyone else. Other than that, nothing bad.
Lurch.
What's the worst injury you've ever had in the studio?
The worst injury, the most embarrassing and unbelievable, but that really happened, or the one that was the worst injury?
You want to share? If you want to share both, either way, dude.
I'll share both.
Okay.
Okay, the true story, when I was doing production, we sat down and worked, and I was learning how to fume with gold, and I had a piece of a gold blob that was way bigger than what you should have. when you're fuming, because you know how they like to jump off the rod. And it actually jumped off the rod and landed in my lap and burnt through my pants and through my underwear and embedded itself into my nutsack.
Jesus.
And not like embedded itself deep, but enough to where it was stuck. And so like I jump up, you know, in pain. I run to the bathroom, and I drop my drawers, and there's this little shiny, like, and I did for the split second have the thought, like, maybe I could just leave it in there. But like, no, I pulled it out, and like it pulled out right away. But I did have like a little burn on my beanbag for, you know, it was sensitive, and it did really happen. And I have one of my current shop mates was at the studio at the time. I'm lucky that I still work with some of the guys that I came up with, who actually worked with me at In-N-Out Burger, and I just ended up getting them in the glass industry because they're my friends. But anyway, that's the most unbelievable story, but it did really happen to me. And then the worst injury I think I have was probably a burn. I can't remember, but in fresh memory is a cut that it was dripping so much blood that I had to pour like a whole bunch of super glue in it, and the blood kept pushing the super glue out. And so by the time it had hardened a shell over it, I had this like mound of bloody super glue over that I just left there, and then it peeled off the next day and left like a clean cut wound that I, you know, then super glued again with way less glue. But that was like the worst. There was just a lot of blood, and some people get squeamish about blood. I never really do. I don't like seeing other people in pain, but my own is okay.
Lewis Wilson.
When we're talking about worst injuries in the studio, I've got to tell you the one about my brother's left testicle.
Oh, Jesus. Well, let's hear it.
There's probably been hundreds of people that have heard this story when I'm teaching and at conferences and stuff like this. But when I was learning at Disney World, I was coming back and forth to Cocoa Beach, and I was living in a trailer in Cocoa Beach with my younger brother. And I would learn everything there and then come back, and I had a National 3A blowpipe and an oxygen and propane, and we didn't have an oven or anything like that. We were making little small solids, and I'd learn at Disney. I'd come back, I'd show him something, and he was a major stoner. You know, I was all right. I'd cop a buzz anytime I wanted to, but he was like constantly stoned. And so I'm 24, working at Disney, just getting ready to get out of the Air Force, and my younger brother's like 20. And so I'm showing him something here and this and that, and I'm sitting on the couch, and we've both been smoking, and he's sitting here, and he's wearing a bathrobe and no underwear, and he's at the torch, and he's making this little elephant out of 10-millimeter rod, and he's finished the whole piece, and it's got a punty on the belly of the elephant. And because we didn't have an oven or anything like that, he's getting ready to knock the piece off the punty, so you heat the body of the elephant, and then you heat up your tweezers, and you get ready to grab the elephant and knock the punny off and fire polish the belly. Mm-hmm. So he heats up the tweezers. He got the oven or the elephant really hot, and then he sneezes or something like this, and he bumps into the National. The elephant falls off the punty, lands on the torch table, and bounces onto his chest and fuses to his chest. And the first thing you do, and we've all done it, you backhand. You don't swat it off your clothing or your body or whatever. It's happened to us 1,000 times. So he swatted it, and it went down his pants, but he wasn't wearing pants. So it went down to the space between the left side of his testicle and his left inner thigh. And this is an elephant that's probably the size of a good-sized grape. It was glowing red when it fell off, and it fused the skin on the inner thigh and the left side of the testicle. And so, and this whole story, and it goes on, it's fun. This whole story happened in less than 2 seconds. So heat up the elephant, heat up the tweezers, elephant gets bumped, elephant gets stuck to your chest, you're screaming and yelling. I'm on the couch laughing my ass off. He swats the elephant to get it off his chest because it's burning him. It goes straight down his crotch, fuses to the skin of the inner thigh, the inner left testicle, and he jumps up, he stands, he spreads his legs, and the skin has melted, and it spreads out like a bat wing. Oh. And then he's screaming and yelling, And still in this 2-second story, I'm saying, oh, let me get some water, I'll throw on it. And he says, no, it'll explode and it'll cut me and this and that. And meanwhile, where I'll go get water, I'm laughing and roll off the couch laughing, and he's jumping up and down. He's burned his chest, he's burned his balls, and he's grabbing his tweezers that are still glowing red. This is in real time, less than 2 seconds. He grabs the tweezers that were glowing red, and he's going to grab the elephant to pull it off. He misses the elephant, and he impales himself twice with the tweezers sticking into his thigh, as if Vlad the Impaler vampire got skewered.
God.
So, and not that he just got hit by those, they were red fucking hot.
Oh my God.
So burned chest, burned balls, impaled twice, and then finally they pulled the tweezers out, grabbed the thing, yanked it out, and then that pulled the flesh out too as it was burned. And I'm still working active duty Air Force. I'm not on duty there, but I hop him on my motorcycle. We take him to the ER and get him fixed up with Furus and all this stuff for a good serious burn. But that's probably one of the better glass stories on the burn from hell.
Mongo.
What is your worst injury in the studio you've had?
Probably just running my hand through the flame. Let's see. Yeah. It's a typical just stupidly grabbing something hot, I think, right after. Just not putting like a tube together. When I work tubes, I'll get down to the end, I'll put them together, and I'll put it back on the roller and straighten it out, and then I'll grab the fucking middle. That's genius, bro.
Yeah, I've done that.
Right there.
Hundreds of times.
Yeah, and quickly, you got to fucking put your burns in water. You got to get your burn immediately. I've taken burns that are pretty bad and gotten rid of them immediately because I keep them hydrated. I'll get a wet paper towel wet towels, and I'll keep my hand on that while I work. And it takes the pain away, and then I just keep working, and then I can just deal with a little bit of pain. Actually, that's a lot of pain when you start working. But anyways, you can deal with it because you can put it back and keep it wet. Just keep that fucker wet, even if it's all night. Put it by your bed and sleep with that thing next to your bed and keep your hand on it by morning. You will have way less burn because it's just a damaged, dry severe dehydration of your skin. So then I use Aquaphor after that. At the end of it, that heals up now to minimize the scarring and the healing quick. Yeah. That really is hypoallergenic, and it cleans up helps the healing process faster too.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Awesome.
All kinds of health stuff we hit on today, man.
Yeah,
that's
man.
Awesome.
That's what it's all about.
Love you.
Yeah.
Show's great.
Oh, thank you.
Bob Harley Dog.
In the studio, what is your worst injury? I know outside the studio is your worst injury, but
yeah, outside was definitely my leg. But inside the studio, the worst injury that I had was I used to not flame polish all of my blow tubes. I learned later, taking a class with Phil Siegel, that he flame polished all his blow tubes, and I still didn't after doing that until shortly when anyone that's ever snapped glass, score and snap glass, I was scoring and snapping blow tubes and getting some prepped, and one of the blow tubes had a crazy little micro shard, probably about a ½ inch long on it, like super tiny. Well, I had blow tubed up to something, and I went back to put it up to my lips to puff into it, and as everyone knows what's coming, I not only stabbed myself in the lip with that shard, but when I jerked, I snapped it off in my lip. And I dealt with that for over a year. I could not get all the glass out of my lip, and from that day forward, it was gnarly. I was bleeding all over the place. The apprentice was just like, "What happened?" And I'm like, "Man, I just cut myself like on a blow tube," and and then started crunching glass, basically around in my lip, and finding out that there was way more of a problem there. So every now and then I'll have a little bit of glass come to the surface.
Yeah, weird,
of my
right?
fucking lip. Yeah, so that was probably one of my gnarliest glass blowing injuries. And what I learned from it is flame polish your blow tubes.
Thank you for tuning into this Halloween edition, the Best of the Worst Injuries, Volume 1. Happy melting, and don't burn yourself. Pay attention. Glass is sharp, fire is hot. Don't become your own victim.